Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Beyond Max Q. I'm your host, Mollie Jahner. I am joined today by Anieke Lamers. She is tremendous human being. First of all, let me just say, having known a little bit about her story and the amazing philanthropic efforts and her heart for changing the world, is amazing in and of itself. But I think for today's episode, the fact that she is, you know, co-managing this amazing fund, the Borske Fund. It has this VC coaching operation that she's also founded and running. There are tremendous opportunities to pick your brain on all things funding, I think, for our audience. So with that, please introduce yourself a little bit.
Thanks, Molly. Super excited to be here and chatting with you today. And I just wanted to correct when you said philanthropic. I do have a philanthropic heart, but there's a big difference, I think, between philanthropy and, let's say, impact investing, because I do believe that investing, let's say, in women or impactful initiatives can also generate a really great positive market rate return. But yeah, anyway, one step back.
Oh,
I'm
that's good.
Anieke
I love
indeed.
that. So in
Yeah,
future, impact investment. I'm gonna use that. I like that.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so most of my time is filled currently with Borske Fund, which is a venture capital fund based out of Amsterdam. For the listeners who don't know what venture capital is, that is basically a fund that bundles a lot of money from institutional investors, but can also be rich people, and then distributes that to startups in return for a percentage of shares that we then make a return on, and that we distribute back to our investors. And we do that from Amsterdam, and we invest in female and underrepresented founders and diverse teams. So it can also be male and female founder teams. And the reason we do that is because, unfortunately, less than 2% of global venture capital goes to female founders. And I believe more than 80% goes to only male teams, and the rest is to mixed teams. And that should, of course, change, because if we don't invest in women, then a lot of really amazing female innovations will never see the light of day. And also there will be a gender inequality gap where women, they don't sit on the money, they can't make the decisions, they are not financially independent. So it has a lot of ripple effects as well. And we do that with our triple investment thesis. So we invest in women alongside other female investors and in female innovations. So that is the lion's share of my time that I spend. But I also have a really great passion project next to Borske Fund, and that is that I'm also the founder of the Venture Capital Coach. And I'm really excited about that as well, because I used to be a VC that struggled also a little bit in the former fund that I was at, and I was looking for an executive coach who really understood what this job entails and the struggles it has. And then I didn't find one that suited what I needed, so I coached myself. I did a coach education. And then I decided I want to be there in the world for others to help them with their struggles. And I often coach female venture capital investors who want to be more impactful and want to be more aligned with their personal as well as their fund mission. So yeah, that's in short
No,
my
I love
current.
it.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there. I want to start with I actually want to start with the VC coach piece because I
Mhm.
think that that's really unique and a little different. And can you talk a little bit more about the types of things that you coach other VCs on?
Definitely. It's a number of topics. So obviously, it is executive coaching is focused, of course, on career stuff and struggles at work, but that is 100% intertwined with your personal life and who do you want to be, what kind of leader do you want to be, who do you want to show up as at work, how are you at your best self. So it is a combination of, let's say, dealing with some of the struggles and the barriers that people are dealing with and helping them through a transformation into becoming or achieving a certain objective that we work on. And that can be, I want to become a partner in my fund, or maybe I want to start my own venture capital fund, or maybe I want to do something completely different. Maybe I want to work for a portfolio company or like a startup for a while to become like a more well-rounded investor. Maybe it can be a bit more about crisis or conflict resolution. So it's a variety of topics, and it's always very exciting to help my coachees, yeah, with that.
No, that's fantastic. And I think I would also like to, how that connects to your fund? And we obviously have an audience primarily made up of founders. Hearing that you're coaching fellow VCs, it's like, okay, that's important because I think, you have a very specific investing strategy. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about what makes certain startups stand out and how you decide to invest.
In my opinion, there are three important stakeholders when it comes to startups and development of startups. One is your team. So, what kind of people are you having on your team, and how can you get the right people on board to help you in your mission going forward as well? The second one is the idea and getting to product market fit with your customers. So, really understanding the value that the product has for customers. And that also is 100% related, I think, to monetization, because if people see that you bring value, they're also willing to pay for it. And then, yeah, that shows in your traction as well. And the third one is related to funding and also getting the right investors on board, being financially sustainable with the business model that you have in combination with the funding that you intend to get.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I love the piece at the end too, where it's like, okay, finding the right investors and kind of partnering. And you've been a founder too, which is what makes this so like I love this whole like almost like ecosystem of wisdom that you have to pull from because I feel like you talked about how you've gone through your founding journey and what that looked like to connect to maybe even the wrong types of partners or funding. And I think I would love for you to elaborate on that. And I think that'll kind of explain why you're so passionate about connecting people the right way.
Yeah, definitely. So with my startup, I definitely built it from 0 to 1 out of scratch. And because my background was in venture capital before I started my startup, my default mode, if you will, was always to build it in a way that I could fundraise. And of course, I've seen a lot of startups before I went and made the leap to becoming a founder myself. So I never even thought about building a bootstrapped company. In hindsight, I think that could have been a much more sustainable and maybe more interesting way to build the type of company that I was building. However, I didn't do that. So I did look for investors, and I was really confronted with I don't want to say a cuss word because I don't know if that's allowed on this podcast, but how
It's
many
allowed. It's
assholes are
allowed.
out there? I mean, just not treating you like a human and not showing up for meetings or showing up very late for meetings, never replying to emails, ghosting, like these kind of things. And sometimes also some really, let's say, inappropriate questions as a female founder that maybe some male investors might not be that conscious of because it's not such a loaded topic for, let's say, male founders. So they don't even know that what they're asking is a loaded topic. For example, I was building a kids tech company, and yeah, one of the potential angel investors that I was speaking to was asking me, like, don't you want to have kids of your own? Like, you're in your 30s, and these kind of questions. And you're like, oh, I cannot win. Like, if I say yes, of course, I want kids, that will harm the business. If I say no, I might come across as bitchy or
Right.
unkind, not suitable to build a kids tech startup. So, yeah, that seems like a trick question, obviously. And without maybe this person even meaning it as a trick question, but Yeah, I
or
just
a
really
sensitive
noticed.
topic either, right? I mean,
Sorry?
can we talk about, or it's such a sensitive topic. I mean, can we even just talk about that?
Yeah,
Like it's just none of their business what that even
exactly.
looks like. Like how if I decide to build a family, what that family looks like. Maybe not even having the kids, but adopting, and it's like this whole thing. It's just not appropriate at all.
Exactly, exactly. And that is hard because sometimes it is a relationship business. So you do want to build a relationship and you do want to have trust. And trust also starts with openly sharing and kind of like building a relationship and like maybe even sharing some vulnerable things with each other. But where do you draw the line? And that is, of course, quite hard, especially as a first-time founder, I think. Yeah, so I was really strengthened also to help investors being a little bit more founder oriented, being more founder friendly, seeing founders as their equals. If anything, I think investors should actually be putting founders on the pedestal because they are actually building the value. They are actually building the companies, doing the hard work in the trenches.
Right, the dream.
Exactly. And investors are basically just moving around money from often other people, not even their own money often. So yeah, I am yeah, somebody who wants to change that. And I think there should be more equality between investors and founders. And one way that I want to do that is by coaching investors to be more human. Yeah, and I sometimes also support some startups in their journey as a mentor. Yeah.
Love that. That's a great answer. And it is more human. And I've long thought that like it's hard to have a dream, right? It's hard to have a vision for something, to build something, and it's really easy to come in and tear that dream down. And I
Yeah.
see that happen a lot with VCs who are like, oh, that's not a good idea, or poking holes in it. And there is merit to some of that, right? To refine, like the element of refinement. But having that dream is so hard. And so it never made sense to me when, VCs, like you said, to your point, we're treating them less than instead of at the very least equals.
Mm-hmm. It is much easier position to be in, um, because yeah, indeed, you're not the one being judged. You're not in the arena, as Brene Brown always really says it so elegantly. And um, I think investors also, yeah, they don't really have that growth mindset that founders do. So investors sometimes have to know it all, whereas founder, you need to enjoy the learning and falling down and making mistakes and getting back up. And um, I would like to change that as well. So making investors also a little bit more open about sometimes that they make mistakes and that that's okay and that they're learning and also growing as a human. Yeah, that's exciting stuff.
Yes, I agree. Well, and you're bringing, I think, something that's so valuable because right now it feels like there's almost like a fence or a wall between startups and investors, right? And not just VCs, but all types of funding. It's like this big wall. It's like, okay, how do I scale this wall versus like having it be an open conversation where we can really reach across the aisle and get to know each other. And so I think that it's so good. I love you said he's making it human, which I think is really good.
Do recognize that fence, and I know there are VCs who are trying to do it a little bit different, like having a
Yes.
more open door policy. Um, and to be honest, like I'm also struggling now being back in venture capital, because of the sheer amount of inflow of people wanting something of me and just not being able to be the service-oriented kind person that I want to show up as because of the workload. So it does feel sometimes like drinking from a fire hose. Uh, it just, there's so much coming your way. And yeah, that is hard. So really finding a balance and really focusing kind of like as a center point in a tornado. It's a challenge for a lot of VCs and including for me. So um, sometimes I feel, let's say, a little bit mixed about the fact that I'm coaching others of showing up as their best version of themselves in their work, whereas I sometimes not show up as my best version of myself. But then on the other hand, I do know the struggle. I can relate a lot, and it sometimes also helps to kind of validate it a little bit more. So there's this interesting
Tug of
balance, I guess.
war.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's well said. Well, I also was wanting, as we kind of dive even deeper into this topic, you talk about this inflow, right? And it's a fire hose. What stands out, or how do you start to honestly manage some of that flow, right? What are the tips that you use in your everyday life?
Yeah. So I guess it is being intentional. Um, you can easily chase every, let's say, ball that comes your way and be very busy with that. But sometimes just taking a step back and it's like, okay, what is the one thing that I need to do today, and do that. And then accepting that all the other things that you also still needed to do and that are sort of coming also your way, that you're not able to finish that as well. Um, so yeah, being intentional, focusing, knowing that you cannot do it all, that is, I guess, a start. And yeah, setting boundaries is, I think, something that a lot of my coachees are having trouble with. And I
How
think
do you do it?
myself,
How do you set boundaries? I would like to know.
yeah, good question. Um, some people are naturally good at it. They are just less flexible people, which is they're more grounded and they just know how to say no. Actually, my life partner is one of those people. um, and they just know that they give the quality when they show up and they can put their laptops away when the time's up, and that's that, you know. um, but others feel like maybe they're a little bit more anxious in their personalities or in their behaviors. And then if you dig a bit deeper, the root cause is often that they feel like they're not good enough if they don't actually do more. So they feel like they have to do more and it's just never good enough, you know? And that is often not something that somebody else imposes, but more something that is a limiting belief from sometimes even childhood, you know,
Mhm.
that can be very, yeah, hard to change or be conscious of. Once you dig a bit deeper and you can flick the switch and reset, I think that is magical.
Yes, no, I love that. It's so true. And also saying yes. I heard this somewhere and I really liked it. You have to say no so your yes means something, which
Yes.
I really liked. And I was like, I love that. That makes it just kind of clicked for me. I was like, oh gosh, yeah, if you're saying yes to everything, that doesn't actually mean anything, which I know I personally struggle with. So it's good to hear you say that, those tips and tricks. But for our audience too, because I know that this is a question we get a lot, and I would love to ask you since we have a funder, um, what kind of startups are you looking to invest in the next year?
Mm-hmm. So we have, let's keep it a little bit shorter term. So this year I'm looking to invest in 4 new startups. Um, with Borske, we have 3 themes that we invest in. One is health, and we see a lot of femtech, female health products, given our gender lens. Um, Secondly, we have clean tech and circularity. So we see a lot of deep tech, carbon neutralizing startups in there. And then we have a third category, which is a mix of a lot of things. We call it future societies. So that is, um, can be future of work, education, AI startups, metaverse, blockchain, all these nice buzzwords are in there. And what I'm looking to invest in on the shorter term, because of the stage that our fund is at, is a little bit more later stage, because ultimately a fund needs to work towards the exit of the fund as well. And our fund exit line is in 5 to 6 years. So that is quite short if you would be investing in earlier stage startups.
Uh-huh.
So we are a little bit more critical than we were 4 years ago when we started out with the fund, to invest a little bit more in startups that can work to an exit within the next 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're across Europe. We really want to invest more in the UK as well, because we are based in the Netherlands, but lots of
Mhm.
our so-called limited partners, so the investors in our fund, are also interested to have us invest a bit more in the UK. So I'm actively scouting there. Yeah, I think that gives
Yeah,
some
that's a
element of
perfect
color.
answer.
Yeah.
I love it. I also think, just want to call out that, you know, you have such a unique, refreshing perspective. And I would like to encourage the startups and the founders that are in the audience that it's not that there are people like yourself who are trying to change the way that fundraising works and how the system is, and that it may be broken now, but with people like you, like change makers, it's not going to be broken forever. And so I just wanted to throw that encouragement out. I try to feature people like yourself because it's encouraging for everyone to see that there are good people out there doing good things. And so I wanted to say that. But we always end with what are you currently reading? So I wanted to ask you that question.
Ooh, I am currently reading The Flow Experiment by, I think it's Michael Singer. He's also the author of The Untethered Soul, which is one of my favorite books, actually.
Okay.
Um, and it's a spiritual book, so it's about personal development, I would say. And The Flow Experiment, I think I'm trying to experiment with it in my life right now. Basically, what he says is that we are often chasing a lot in our lives, which is a lot of wasted energy, and momentum is very important. So rather than chasing things, let things come your way and just go with the flow. So in the experiment in his book, he just says yes to things that come his way. That's the opposite of what you mentioned earlier, like say no very clearly. He basically shut down the voice in his head that would say no and that would be critical. And he just went ahead and said yes. And then he ended up with this like multi-billion-dollar company that IPO'd, and he became super rich and also spiritual. So it's a little bit of a an interesting approach, I think. But it did relate a lot for me to my startup time, because for me, building my startup was really feeling like rolling a rock up a hill. It was just like constantly pushing, and there was never a moment where I felt like in flow, because it was so swimming against the stream. And in the end, I think I got quite a few offers to go back in VC, and I kept saying no, no, no. I want to be a
Mhm.
founder. I want to build my company, you know. And in the end, I think I did surrender to, yeah, just going back in VC and going with the flow. And I just felt a weight lift off my shoulders ever since I did that. I do think the position of a VC is much more easier than the position of a founder. So yeah, that might have a thing to do with it. But in the end, it was also, yeah, for me going with the flow and yeah, saying yes to what comes your way, and opportunities will open that way as well.
I love it. Thank you. It's a perfect way to end. So, thank you very much for taking your time and coming on the podcast, sharing with our audience. Yeah, I'm going to link in the video description to, all the different things you've mentioned and talked about. And then if anybody wants to reach out, I mean, can follow her on LinkedIn. The stuff she posts is fantastic. And I just thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, same to you, Molly. It was an absolute pleasure.